Um, Roses are red, violets are blue. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to start it off like that. But obviously, I'm going to be talking about poetry. And I'm not going to really get into it too much. I'm going to tell you it's a way of life. Poetry has been out since the ancient Roman times. Poetry is a way of, like I said, it's a way of life. It's looking at what's around you and actually giving it that spark. I'm going to be talking about three things, which is one, the definition of it. The definition, I wanted to really talk about that because there is no definition. I'll get into that later though. Two is the rhyme scheme. Personally, I'm a fan of the rhyming part of poetry. And three, I'm going to give you a little bit of tips and some insight on actually writing your own poems. Webster defines poetry as the art of rhythmical composition, written or spoken for exciting pleasure by beautiful, imaginative, or elevated thoughts, which I thought was pretty cool. And I'm gonna personally be talking about free verse poetry. My favorite, of course. There's plenty more, sonnets, limerick, etc. There's thousands of different kinds of poetry. Poetry is a way to voice your opinions, your ideas, and like I was saying earlier, all of the world's silent beauties. Percy Bysshe Shelley said a quote. He said, "Poetry lifts the veil from the hidden beauty of the world and makes familiar objects be as if they were not familiar, and not familiar objects be as if they were." Next, I'll be talking about the rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme in free verse poetry is not necessary. You don't have to rhyme on free verse poetry, but it gives it a sort of musical element when you rhyme. Another thing about rhyming in your poetry is that what we learned in class earlier is that your mind picks up more words than it can give out. So you're always thinking about extra things when you're listening to someone speak, like you're listening to me right now. The good thing about rhyming is it kind of echoes what you're saying, your idea in their mind, and it keeps them intact, keeps them listening. Like I said, rhyming gives the audience a mental visual and deepens their comprehension. On actually writing the poem, free verse poetry, just as the name states, it has no rules, no set regulations. You don't have to count all the syllables. For example, Shakespeare, one of the greatest ever, he wrote in iambic pentameter. I tried that. No. Like I said, it is free from rules and counting syllables. And the topic, when it comes to poetry, is so widely. It's huge. You can't put limits on that. There's no boundaries. You basically can talk about the concrete things in the world. Talk about, like I said, roses, and you can talk about computers or whatever, and you can talk about concepts. Concepts as in things that you can't see, things that you can't smell, touch, or feel, like, well, you can feel it, like love, anger, things like that, things of that nature. When it comes to actually writing a poem, obviously you're gonna need something to write about. After you have that thought, you sit down and you just let your imagination go rampant. Lots of poets actually say that. Just sit there and just go wild with it. There is no right or wrong way to do poetry, especially when it comes to free verse. Free verse is you expressing the way you think, how you feel in your life. You should go about it by every single angle, every aspect you can. Play with the words. You always want to do that. An important part of it is pausing, going away for a second, coming back, rereading it, especially if you have a long or deeply profound poem that you're trying to write. Okay, and to top it all off, we're talking about the definition of poetry. We also talked about the rhyme scheme, which is very important, and how to do a poem. I'm actually wanted to give you guys a poem. I don't know if I have time.
Not
this poem was like, I chose this one because it has so much different wordplay in it, and it's kind of like rapish a little bit, but you know, I like it. I hope you guys do too, and don't laugh at me. I swear that every time you see her, the style keeps changing on. But every time I see her, she's playing the same old song. I showed you love, you left me alone. I leave you alone, you call my phone. I call you baby, you yelling that you grown. What's going on? I can't do this for too long. No, not me, yeah, that be wrong. So I pack my bags and I be gone. Later knocking on my door, sweet talk. All that means is that she's feeling for some more. She'll never let you know. But prior to her, but she done drop the low. Now I ain't the one, girl, and I ain't the fool. Been here before, girl, now I ain't the one. A lifetime of pain for a lifetime of fun. Can you do the math, baby? No equations. Took half my heart, sum it up, you can't phase it. Yeah, it's so amazing. Just cause you came in, you think that you gon' come up. Now you got me. Baby girl, please don't take me for a sucker. I told you that the first time, so now I never love you. Save it for your mother. Mine's down young, so I pass it to my brother. Family over everything, even over them hundreds, and them hundreds over everything, even over them honeys, and them honeys just be honeys. I be hitting them till they buzzing. You know that she's super bad, she probably touching the club. Okay, you gonna need a mitten to reach what's up in the oven. You guys got me a little nervous. Let's cut it off at that.